What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
At Baker's Pharmacy, care is what's most convenient for you. Care is being here when you need us. We're open evenings and weekends. Care is helping you save more. Most insurance plans and discount cards are accepted at your local Baker's Pharmacy. Care is saving you time by managing your prescriptions online. You can request refills, check order status, and more. Care is convenience that works for everyone. Baker's, a world of care is in store. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details.
This episode is brought to you by Indie Insights, our bi-weekly newsletter and love note to independent film. Inside, you'll find tools, tips, and tricks vetted by industry professionals, independent films that will inspire your creativity, filmmaking events where you can rub elbows with filmmakers just like you, and so much more. The best part of it all, it's absolutely free. All you have to do is go to www.bonsai.film/subscribe, and within a few clicks, you'll be part of our newsletter community. Again, that's www.bonsai.film/subscribe to get Indie Insights, a free bi-weekly newsletter from Chris and Nick at Bonsai Creative. You're listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps creatives in film get where they're going faster by sharing the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives across the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
How's everybody doing today? My name is Jeff Clanagan. I'm the founder of CodeBlack Films, as well as the president and chief distribution officer of Kevin Hart's company, Hartbeat Entertainment.
Jeff Clanagan, welcome to the Make It podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
It really is my pleasure. Super excited to have you with us. You're so experienced, and you have been so successful in all your endeavors. And I just know that there's a ton that this independent film audience and creative audience in general globally is going to learn from you. Normally, I would read from a bio and give people a deeper sense of who you are. And that was sort of the plan. But I think with the time that we have, I should skip over that because your bio is incredibly long, and rightfully so, with all the things you've accomplished. And I just want to jump right in. I will start at a place I didn't expect, though, with the writer's strike coming up. So, or the potential of a writer's strike with the WGA. I'm curious, what is your take on it, and what is the impact that this potential strike would have on CodeBlack and on Hartbeat?
My take on the writers, I mean, it's not the first time the writer's strike, but obviously there are a lot of issues that the writers have to deal with the renegotiation of the contract, and it really comes down to streaming. The previous writers agreement did not really address the streaming business. And what I mean by that is writers, get paid by their upfront fees, but more so in television, they get paid by their royalties when shows play or if a commercial plays. So it's those royalties that writers live on. The current structure of the streaming business does not allow or kind of caps or prohibits their earning potential. So they have big issues that they're going to have to deal with all the big streamers.
What, if any, impact will this have on Hartbeat?
Well, I mean, the impact is obviously if there's a writer's strike, if we're working on scripted movies or television, that's going to shut down. But what happens is you have to pivot to unscripted. I mean, it's, this is an entertainment business. It's not like any of us have not seen this before. I mean, we made pivots when pandemic happened, but what happens is your scripted productions will have to shut down and you'll have to move towards unscripted productions of content. Now, what happens though, what could really be an issue is that there's a potential director strike. So if the writers and the directors are striking at the same time, that's going to be tough, even on the unscripted stuff.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if there's some sort of vote taken at the WGA and sort of some sort of solidarity around that, where people just decide to go ahead and strike both on the director side, producer side, and writer side. That'll be hard to navigate. Now, I am curious about the AI component of this, because I did read, I think maybe it was in a Variety or Hollywood Reporter, that the writers are open to, using AI, want to be able to use AI to help write their content and get credit for it still, in the eyes of, I should just say, in your eyes, do you think, do you think there's a concern there that they can just completely be replaced by AI in the future anyway, and that's part of the negotiation of this strike?
I think the concern is nobody really knows what the potential of AI. I mean, I think I'm somewhat of a fan of AI used in the right way. But, we're starting to see stuff like, you saw these bootleg songs with Drake coming out and Jay-Z, and they're using the artist's voices. That is a clear copyright violation.
Yep.
I think that right now, just from an overall standpoint, that it's almost like the internet, the AI, nobody can control how to AI, and it's really what your program, what are the inputs, and everybody's not going to do the right thing. So I think Hollywood itself is proceeding cautiously. I mean, I think there are some great use cases for AI, but I'm feeling like everything else that's going on in the world is going to get out of control. Nobody's going to be able to control it. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I agree. And look, full disclosure, we decided just to have some fun and use ChatGPT-4 to do research. Mm-hmm. We have a researcher and that we pay, and I do a lot of research to get prepared for these interviews, but we decided we'd try it. And here was my problem with the results they pulled up on you, or that the ChatGPT or the AI, the LLM pulled up on you, is that it gave me a lot of information, but I had no way to verify whether or not it was true.
Yeah.
And so one thing I've seen with we've been using some sort of AI for years at Bonsai Creative and on this podcast, but my issue is that I think the AIs don't know when they're lying, or they don't know when they're not wrong. And the only way you can test it is by testing things you know to be true. So start to look up yourself on these GPTs, make prompts about things you know to be true personally. And then when you find out how inaccurate they are, I think that raises a massive red flag, because had I just used that research without any type of, just like taking the AI's word for it, I could be saying things to you that are completely not related to you without realizing it. It's, I think we're in fascinating times. And I appreciate your candor about AI and those concerns. I'm sure networks have to be saying to themselves, if the writer's going to get credit for AI work, then maybe we should negotiate a better deal where eventually we see ourselves on a path where we just replace it. But I hope that never happens. But there is no excuse for writer's block anymore. Also, I had yeah.
I mean, I think the AI can assist. I don't think AI is going to ever take the place of a writer per se. It's just because at the end of the day, it's a computer. It's technology. You can't take the place of human creativity. I don't care how far you go. I mean, you can duplicate and try to do different things, but at the end of the day, it's still, it's still tech. Tech can only be as creative as the information or the inputs that are put in there. And it's unless we're saying AI is a human brain, then it's just not going to be a replacement for our writers, but it can be an assist. There's things like you're supposed to. So I'll give you an example. We had to do a photo shoot with Kevin Hart for an upcoming project. And what I did was, because he kind of said, I want to do something like this. So what I did is I just fed in the AI, and they gave us a bunch of different looks for the photographer. So we used that as the storyboard. So I think that's where it was very, very helpful. So now we had all these storyboards, and Kevin could look at it, the photographer look at it like this direction, and we had the AI kind of do the storyboard before the shoot. And that same philosophy can be used, especially for shooting films and movies, is that you could basically storyboard out your whole movie. Like you could take the script and literally storyboard that whole movie out in AI, which, up until now, storyboarding takes a long time. It's a long process, but you can just really crank the stuff out really quick. So there's things like that where it can be really additive to a production.
Agreed. There's a great app called Runway that does incredible storyboarding and many, many, many other things, by the way. If you have a short film, it's particularly ideal, or in terms of just getting ideas out and being super creative beyond what you could normally afford as an independent filmmaker. So we're, like I say, we're in interesting times, and there are some really useful cases. And then there's the parlor tricks that you talked about, like making a Drake song or a Jay-Z song. I had a lot of friends do a backflip over that. And I said, yeah, but the song isn't good. And they thought it was good. It's like, well, I'm a musician. That song wasn't good. That just was Drake's voice doing something. That there's a big difference between that. So we'll see how it goes and how much that AI is able to teach itself. I'd love to go back a little bit in time with you. And we do bounce around this podcast a little bit. So fair warning. You have a quote that says your everyday motivation is your kids. And I'm curious, for you, is it about providing? Is that the motivation? Is that why your kids are your motivation, because you like to provide? Or is it more about who they see in you?
Yeah, it's a combination. It is, obviously it is definitely providing. It's also creating a legacy, but it's also being an example to my kids and other kids. But it's a combination of all three. I wouldn't say it's just one particular thing, but yeah, absolutely providing is number one.
Yeah, and I know you've seen a lot being in this business, working with a variety of luminaries across hip hop and entertainment and film, including NWA, Run DMC, Master P. Obviously Kevin Hart, and even more. Do you want your kids to be in entertainment?
No.
Why is that?
I mean, the entertainment business to basically create an entertainment business, it takes a certain type of person. But the entertainment business is cutthroat. It's ruthless. We can talk about it a lot, but it is not a business that I would push my kids towards. Now, if they wanted to go in there, I wouldn't stop them. I would help them, but it's not something I would like push them to. I mean, it's just you got to be a certain type of person to be in the entertainment business.
Growing up in San Jose, California, what did your parents say about you going into entertainment? What were their feelings?
Well, the thing about it is, my progression in entertainment, I was still working at a job before I fully stepped in the entertainment business. I was working at, when I graduated from University of Washington, I was working at Dun & Bradstreet and then kind of moonlighting in entertainment. So it was kind of a side thing. It never was like, oh, okay, that's your career until I actually had to make the jump. But, the thing about it is you, like, if you were to ask my mother back then, like, what does Jeff do? They couldn't really explain what I did because I was a promoter. Like, it's just it's not a job description. I would kind of like, just, hey, this is what I'm doing. I do marketing because that's my degrees in marketing, right? Mm-hmm. So they couldn't necessarily, for a while, they couldn't necessarily like really say what I actually did because it's. You talk about, I have a lot of relatives back east, Pittsburgh, and DC, and like try to tell them what I actually do. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not the normal job description, especially at that time because I was a concert promoter.
What is a guy with a marketing major doing getting a job at Dun & Bradstreet?
It was just a job. When I came out, I don't know how I got recruited there. I was a credit analyst. That was just, I don't know why. I don't know how I ended it, but that was just the first job when I came out of college.
So for those who don't know, and most people won't, Dun & Bradstreet is a place that sort of provides, they give you like a number, they give you a Dun & Bradstreet number, and it allows corporations to sort of form trust between each other, a proof of insurance, proof of business. Do I have that about right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's 100% correct.
Yeah.
And it might have been like during college, in my later years, I actually had a part-time job at Sears in the credit department. So probably because I had that on my resume. But that was a credit department. That was collections. That was a guy back then calling, hey, credit collections. So had credit collections on my own. Well, although that's the same thing, but you still had credit on the resume.
You leveraged it.
Yeah.
All good. That's what you're supposed to do. So, you're working at Dun & Bradstreet, you're a marketing major. What inspired you to take this path towards promotion? I think you couldn't even really explain to your parents what it was.
The promotion thing started way before that. I mean, the entrepreneur started in high school. And it was by accident. Yeah, it was actually by accident. The school I was really heavily in sports, football and track. And so actually at that time, my goal would say I'm going to play football. That was what I was focused on. But I had a friend, so I had a friend in another school. So I went to in San Jose at that time. I had like our school was kind of like the popular school in San Jose, right? In terms of being really diverse with, Latino, Black, we were kind of like the school. So I had a friend in another school who his school was basically, it was very less diverse, but his parents were going out of town. They were going to Jamaica and he wanted to do a party at his house. So he basically came to me and said, hey, Jeff, can you get everybody from your school to come to this party? We're going to charge $1. I'll give you 25 cents. I'm like, yeah, that's easy. So he gave me the flyer. So needless to say, the police shut down the party because it was a line down the block. So we had this big party. But what that led to, now this is really my junior year in high school. I don't even, it's just a fun thing. It had nothing to do with okay, this is a business or entrepreneur. But what that led to, my friend was very, very entrepreneurial at the time. And he said, okay, hey, let's do some more parties. Let's go rent the roller rink. Let's go rent this club. I'm like, all right. I mean, because for me, I wasn't thinking that's a marketing thing. I was like, okay, you just need me to get people to come to the party,
right,
make us money. And that led into bigger parties by my senior year by college. So there was a point that once the party started to get big, like 1,000 people, and said, okay, we need to do radio. And they need to go to San Francisco, Oakland, because we're doing parties there. It just so happens, and like I said, this stuff is not planned, but it just so happens that one of my other friends who lived around the corner, his uncle was the program director at a radio station called KSOL, which is now KML, which is the big urban station in the Bay Area. He was the program director. So his uncle would come down every weekend because my friend's mother, which was their aunt, watched his kids. So he'd come down every weekend, kind of see what they're doing. Hey, what are you guys doing? He would talk to us all the time, kind of mentor. Yeah. Right? Hey, you doing these parties? Oh, you should go bigger and get radio. I'm like, I know nothing about buying radio. Because remember, I'm still at that point. I'm still a senior in high school.
Right.
So he kind of just walked me through everything. At that point, I wasn't even 18 yet, so I couldn't even sign a contract. So I did my first radio buy, and my father had to come sign the contract because I wasn't even old enough to sign a contract. And then from there, that started these big parties. And I'm buying radio. And he said, okay, look, I can get you some talent, Janet Jackson, people like that, to come to these Dick's parties and start doing these parties in San Francisco. And that really led to, that's the entertainment thing. And when I moved up to Seattle, go to the University of Washington, that was just fertile ground because there wasn't no promoters up there. So my friend and my other friend all went to Washington, were roommates. And we started doing these parties up there. And obviously, like I said, that was fertile because there was one group of promoters up there, but that was just easy to take them out. So that's when I started getting entertainment. But remember, I'm still playing football. So it's still just like, okay, we make some extra money, having fun doing it. But what happened is when I got hurt my second year, so I ended up stopped playing football because I had a bunch of injuries. And then I started focusing on this, and me and friends, we were DJing also. And we got a radio show that was at the University of Washington through the communications class. It was an FM station, and it blanked, Seattle. There was no hip hops. There was really no hip hop stations in Seattle. Oh, so we'd have a Sunday show, started playing hip hop, boom, 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 boom. Then all of a sudden, the DJ pools, which we didn't even know what a DJ pool was. Like there was book, right? They started calling, they would start sending us records to the stations. Like, okay. Then so all of a sudden, within about 2 months, like our apartment is full of records, but the pool DJs are sending us records. So now we're spinning records and we're breaking records. So obviously, the next thing you just look on a record, okay, let's start putting a hip hop act at the parties, because we were doing like 1,000 or 1,500 people at parties. So that was just kind of a natural progression. It wasn't something that was planned. But the first group I booked was LA Dream Team, which was actually Jerry Heller, who was the big manager. Yeah. Jerry Heller, I paid him $1,000. They flew up, boom, we did LA Dream Team, sold out. It was a New Year's Eve show. But then I put Run DMC, but it was just one act at a party per se. That led me into the concert business full scale. So when I graduated, I'm still doing these hip hop acts here, rap acts here. Right. Then I go to Dun & Bradstreet, and now the entertainment thing is like really moving. So at one point, then I had to make true story, because that's back when they had there was no internet. It was fax machines, right, and phones. So right. My desk just happened to be in the back by the fax machine. So I'm doing my Dun & Bradstreet, but I'm working my entertainment, sending faxes, all that kind of stuff. And then the manager called me and said, "Hey, are you running a business out there?" I'm like, "No." But then they moved my desk right next to the manager's office. And that's when I had to make the choice, and I quit. And I said, "I'm going to do the entertainment thing, full thing." But it wasn't something that was planned at the early stages. Yeah. But I have to say that hip hop music and culture really enabled me to really grow my entrepreneurship, like entrepreneur bones, and then move into the industry, because there wasn't a lot of competition, because the bigger promoters and things around it didn't really understand the genre at that point. They thought it was just kind of like a flash in and out. But that's what really gave me the roots to really to grow my career. Everybody from, like I said, from Easy to NWA to Luke to all those guys back then. I used to roll with all those guys, and they're the ones that really give me a shot.
Yeah, it's remarkable to look back on those early days of hip hop and see and recognize and read and hear about how many credible people thought that hip hop was really just a flash in the pan, a fad.
They did.
That it was going to come and go. Mm-hmm. And that seems so preposterous now, but back then there was a real sense that this music wasn't going to be around, wasn't going to last. And I love the story of as well, because it just goes to show that success happens brick by brick. One thing leads to another. One good decision begets another. Mm. And you look back on it and you say, "Oh, I built a wall." And that wall is my career. So it's a really good lesson for anyone listening. You started out sort of saying, like high school, "Hey, I'll give you a quarter for every dollar," or whatever we charge the door to get people in. And I would say in my mind, that's you sort of starting with just the simple desire to make some money on the side. Mm. If anyone was listening today and wanted to follow the same path, would you say start with money or start with someone, whether it be themselves or someone they're representing talent, and try to polish that talent and see if you can get the money through the talent or the success through the talent.
Yeah, it kind of goes, if I'm talking to people now, if I was my younger self now, it'd be social media. Because what you can do with social media and done right in any business, from a marketing standpoint, from an audience standpoint, technology is kind of the equalizer, even like how we're talking about AI, right?
Right.
Technology is the equalizer for young folks and for entrepreneurs to really, if they want to go into business, do something. That's the big, because you can reach people directly. Audiences in direct relationship with consumers are the most coveted kind of thing for companies trying to reach audiences. So I would really, for me, I really advocate is, especially when I'm focused, I work with a lot of like high school kids and college kids. I do internships and stuff like that, and really surround social media. And my thesis is this: I always tell kids, show me your phone. How many hours are you on the phone? You're 8 hours on the phone. Make money with it. You use your phone all day long, and it's all social media. What's the usage on your phone? If you look at the usage on your phone, what you're using the phone for, you're sitting on social media. Well, if you're going to be on the phone for that long during the day, figure out how to make money with it.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Yeah. There really is. The fulcrum really is your choice, right? You can be on the phone all day, and it can be sort of, social media can be this thing that makes you depressed. It can be this thing that makes you feel like you're compared to others. It can be this thing that makes you laugh. It can also be this thing that makes you money.
Exactly.
It just depends on what choices you're making. What is your input and output with that tool? Going into your filmmaking work a little bit, I'm curious what you look for in a project. How do you determine whether a film project has the potential to succeed? You're willing to sort of bet on it and develop it.
I'm a little bit probably different from most Hollywood executives, or a lot of Hollywood executives. When, being in a studio for so long, you have a lot of creative people who are in positions that make choices based off their subjective personal likes or dislikes. You ever seen that movie? Like, you look like, how did this movie ever get made? With somebody in the studio, oh, I like this concept. I look for projects that I believe there's an audience for. It's not based on my personal, like, oh, I like this or I like that. Because personally, the kind of movies that I go see, I like action. I like John Wick. I like Matrix. That's what I personally like.
Right.
I'm not necessarily making those movies, Gladiator, stuff like that, or, Black Panther. That's the stuff I personally like. So when I'm looking at stuff, is really, I really study audiences and trends and what I think the audience, and also how can I market the film? So for me, it's like, as soon as I look at the script, my marketing hat is on. Okay, how would I market this? How does this cast? So it's really, is there an audience for it versus is it something that I personally like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's super important. I think we do something very similar where we're looking for where does the audience live inside of this screenplay, inside of this work of art? Like, who are your supporters? Who are the people in the community and organizations in the community that may support a film like this? If we're trying to do a little bit of an independent film raise, for example, I think that's a super smart approach. Do you have to love the story, or do you have to see cast? Like, what are you looking for first?
Well, I think what filmmakers should know, if they're going into pitch to a studio, the more elements that you have, the more likely you have to do it. Because, for example, if you bring me a script and it's just a script, well, that means I got to go out and find the cast. I have to go out and do it. So now you're putting that load on me versus, but hey, I got this script and so is attached to that. So the more elements that are attached, the more likelihood to pick up. Now, that's not to say that's always the case. That's kind of more in my case. Now, in certain cases, other people might have different things, but because I have to do so many things in running a company, is not just really film productions or acquisition, but I have a lot of hats that I wear. So I'm always looking for, a shorter path if I see a project.
Right. Right. So in other words, guys, if you're hearing what Jeff's putting down there, and be entrepreneurial in your approach to your work and have a lot of the work done in advance, your chances will go up exponentially from there. I mentioned to you before that we did I've lived in the life of Jeff Clanagan for the last week or two and prep for this interview, and we love research. Turns out you've also called yourself a researcher, and you said that your own research has helped more than anything throughout your career. So curious what the single most important thing you found through your research has been, and how did that impact your career?
Well, I think in any business or any endeavor that you're going into, you really have to research the business and learn everything about it. Because if you go in blind and, you have blind spots when you're doing stuff. I mean, my thing, even like when I talk to people, sometimes people ask me questions and it's questions they could have just Googled, why don't you Google the questions and then drill down to a more like succinct questions around whatever the topic is. So I feel a lot of people don't do the research. Like they want to do, meetings and generals and stuff like that, but they haven't done the research. So they're asking me like general stuff, like you could just Google that.
Right.
And so that's where I see a lot of people falling short at, is not taking the time to just kind of research the subject or whatever their interest is. Like, so for example, you have people say, hey, I want to get in the entertainment industry. I'm like, okay, what is it that you want to do? Well, I don't know. Well, go back and research and come back to me and say, hey, I like this job, then I can give you more information. And that's what I see a lot of.
I got it. Yeah, because the reality is, and in the context you're sharing this, when you have a group of people that don't do their research, the basic research, what ends up happening is you create a corporate culture of meetings, which is a terrible corporate culture where you're always in mind-numbing meetings that didn't have to take place had the group just did a simple Google search or two to have the basics down. Because to me, the best meeting is a meeting where you can brainstorm, wear different hats in the meeting, and ideate. You can't do that if everybody's not on the same page. So it's a great point. There's a lot to go over with you, obviously, but one of the things that's interesting is you talked about promoting concerts. Mm-hmm. How is that different from promoting a national comedy tour, which you've done?
It's pretty much the same thing. I mean, the concerts, comedy tour, because it's just the genre, whether it's music or comedy, stage plays that you're promoting, because you have to wear. You book the talent, you book the buildings, you route, you do all the advertising, marketing, put tickets on sale. It's pretty much the same thing.
Okay. So I didn't know to the depths in which it would be the same thing. It's interesting how that works, because I view a concert as a one-off promotional event, whereas a comedy tour is a series of promotional events. But you've probably gone on the road with these artists too, as well.
Yeah. I went like, okay. So
you're not like a one-off guy. Even on the concert side.
I'll give you that. Everybody, I'm sure, has seen the movie Straight Outta Compton, right?
Yep.
I have. Okay, yeah. I was on the whole tour.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I was a promoter on the whole tour.
Yeah. It wasn't a one-off. So that makes a ton of sense. Keeping it in that, you mentioned Straight Outta Compton. Let's jump from NWA to the No Limit family. When you were with No Limit Films, it was the first company to create the whole business model of straight to DVD movie. From a business perspective, how important was that to independent filmmakers at the time, and what kept it from happening before you came along? I just find it interesting that you had to come along before we got that.
Well, the business, when you talk to, let's say, direct to video or direct to consumer at the time. So you think about the business in the 90s, is basically you had Blockbuster and you had Hollywood Video. And at that time, you didn't buy movies. You went and rented them. You often paid exorbitant, late fees, because everybody would always keep the movie, crazy fees. But you would rent the movies. Like that was the business. I mean, the studios make a movie, boom, they put it in a blockbuster rent. So there wasn't a sell-through model. There wasn't a home, everybody had where nobody was really buying videos. And that was just what the model was. The reason that we broke that mold was not by, you see this once again, it wasn't by plan. It was by we didn't have a choice. And this is the thing about, being an entrepreneur, running a company. So when Master P said he wanted to start making these movies, I went around to every studio in town trying to get a distribution deal. Everybody said no. Most of them didn't even know who Master P was. But this is when I realized, when I came to Hollywood, I wanted to produce and stuff like that. But this is when I realized, okay, the distributors are the gatekeepers. They're the ones that can, dictate where the movies get made, get distributed. But without distribution, you don't have anything. And so that's what really got me to change my outlook on where I wanted to be in the business. But the way that we actually got into the sell-through model of videos was by default. So when the studio said no, I went back to P and said, hey, the studio's I'm not getting no action. He just told me to figure it out. There was no plan. So the logic was is where Blockbuster and Hollywood, the only place that you could get movies. I just went to all the record stores. I went to Warehouse Records. I went to Tower Records. I went to Circuit City. I went to Best Buy, whoever was selling CDs, because I knew they were selling millions of CDs of all the No Limit product. And I propped them about carrying videos. And they all said no at first, because like videos, we don't carry videos, we're music, right? But because he was selling so many records, I had a lot of leverage. I kept going. So I got everybody to sign on. Now, the key here was, I said, look, you've got to take these movies. You've got to merchandise them right on the top shelf with all the CDs. Because, at that time we had a whole No Limit section, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to bring the movies in, merchandise them right in the section. Well, 2.5 years and $44 million later, that was the start of the straight to video business. And that's what started. We were the first. It was not a studio that started straight to. It was No Limit. We was the first one to change that and created that whole business model. But it was by necessity. It wasn't by necessary plan.
Yeah. And invention by necessity is typically the sort of nesting ground for the best ideas that we've ever had. Mm-hmm. Exactly. As a species, because you solve a real problem versus a problem. A lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm just speaking from my own experience being an entrepreneur, is that you try to solve a problem that you're guessing is a problem.
Yeah.
And so you're going to create a product and say, let me see if there's a market for this product. Let me see if there's product market fit. But you're not sure. Versus when for me, doing branding and marketing for independent film was a no-brainer, because I'd done independent films where I saw the difference between getting a good distribution deal and a bad one was the fact that there weren't branding and marketing dollars spent on that film. Our film Adult Interference, for example, which was Kate Upton's last feature film, we just didn't know what we didn't know at the time, Jeff. So we didn't have her sign a contract that says, hey, you're going to promote this movie. Mm-hmm. So because she was going in a different direction with her career, which is fine, she's going into like health mom sort of wife category and getting out of movies, she wanted to just associate from the movie. Mm-hmm. And so our MG and our deal with Lionsgate and some of the other deals we could have pursued, didn't happen because there was just no juice anymore. And so we took a deal that, although we're very grateful for the deal and grateful for the distributor, I think the movie could have made a lot more money for everybody. Exactly. Had the marketing and branding been there and had the promotion been there. So, that's me solving my own problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think I love the fact that, hey, we got told no, we're not taking no for an answer. We're figuring out a new way forward, which is really great. You did that as well with CodeBlack Films. It's the first independent, vertically integrated African-American owned studio. Mm-hmm. What was your greatest pushback and resistance from getting that off the ground?
There actually wasn't, because I was before CodeBlack. So just on the timeline, when I transitioned out of No Limit, I started a company called Urban Works.
Urban Works. Okay.
Urban Works was the kind of, it was before CodeBlack, but Urban Works was like we had it for 6 years, but that was actually the first distributor, because once after coming off the success of the No Limit stuff, I then created a company, and so that's where I really broke the ground for retail in terms of establishing relationships with Walmart and Target in terms of straight to video movies. But I was able to really break genres that were not in existence at retail, where people didn't even know there was a demand. So, for example, I'm the one that built the model and set the distribution model for the And One mixtape series. At the time, they were giving away these 30-minute videos when you buy shoes. And knowing how hot it was on the street, I said, look, this is a real business. And they didn't have at that point, And One, they weren't even thinking about a media entertainment business. I said, look, I can sell these. I took those into Walmart, Target, and them things went through the roof. Same thing especially with Walmart. There were no stand-up comedy videos at retail. I did a deal with Time Life and Def Comedy Jam. That's when they were doing the Time Life. You call in 800 and you get the series. So I took the Def Comedy Jam and established that at retail. And that was just huge. And that's what actually built the whole stand-up comedy market. It was the Def Comedy Jam stuff.
That's amazing. Is that a golden doodle, by the way?
It's a Bernie.
Okay. I've got 2 golden doodles. I was like, I thought I saw doodle faces right there.
Exactly. Exact face.
Yeah. I'm a big dog lover. And that's a great point and another great story, because I'm getting nostalgic thinking about N1 and thinking about comedy and retail. I'm like, I'm talking to the man that was at the forefront of getting those things started. I always assumed N1 had a business plan from the beginning because they were so well done.
It was just, they were selling shoes. I went to them. I said, look, I can create a whole business around this. And that's what started their whole entertainment and media business, the touring and all that stuff. But the videos, but it just didn't exist. But I think, the thing is that at that time, like with the N1 mixtapes and then like Def Comedy Jam, this stuff was not a retail. So even when, after No Limit, when the market started changing in terms of sell-through video, it was just movies. It wasn't kind of these independent specialized thing like an N1 mixtape, Def Comedy Jam. Then the studios figured out, okay, they started distributing movies as sell-through, but these kind of specialty things did not exist. But this goes back to what I said earlier is I knew there would be an audience demand for it. I knew there's an audience for it. You couldn't, there was no comps. I couldn't put this in the business place and guarantee it's going to work. But I instinctively knew that there's a huge audience for this stuff, for the entertainment.
Yeah, the branding for N1 was built in, and they went a long way to sort of putting a lot of pressure, if not sort of making the Harlem Globetrotters feel almost nearly irrelevant for, a time. And again, it just goes to show necessity is the mother of invention. Mm-hmm. You mentioned in the top of our conversation that you were talking about your kids not really wanting to be in entertainment because it's cutthroat. It takes a certain type of person. Mm-hmm. I am curious, with all the uber talented people you've worked with, have you noticed that common thread between them? And if so, what is the common thread between all the people you've worked with that have been so successful in their career in entertainment?
But I would say probably the 4 people that I've worked with that all have the same similarities, work ethic, very entrepreneurial, very creative would be Luke, Luke Skywalker, Luther Campbell, Eric Wright, Eazy-E, Master P, and Kevin Hart. They're like, these guys were groundbreakers during their eras, but very, very entrepreneur. Like when I say entrepreneur, I mean, one of the stories I tell sometimes is when I was working with Luke, I spent a lot of time in Miami, and the way that he was breaking records, he was a promoter because he used to produce parties. So, but he basically had a bootleg FM transmitter radio station that would show up like on 89.5, 88. You never know where you'd have to search, right? Yeah. They would have to move around every day because the FCC would always be chasing, right? But it was this transmitter he had covered like all of mine. So he's breaking his records, playing his records, his DJs, but it was like, you go on, 88.5, 89, 82, but you'd have to search, and then you find it, and then there's for a day. It might be a little different the next day, but that was some entrepreneur. Like Luca's the one I was like, this guy just straight building his own market. He's not taking no for an answer. I mean, he's not running to the major record labels. He basically built his own market.
Yeah. What's remarkable about Luke is that he's the person on the list that people might think is doesn't fit, yet he, from everything I've read, he would be the most entrepreneurial. He was doing things that don't get a lot of press. I recently finished the Will Smith book, Will, and he has an entire section dedicated to Luke and how entrepreneurial he was. And that,
I learned a lot from Luke. But yeah, Luke was, like, when I say entrepreneur, like that was the independent label promoter. He was doing it all. But like I said, he doesn't get all the press sometimes or acknowledged. Exactly. But he's really one that really broke it open for everybody else.
Yeah. Shout out to Luke Skywalker. Shout out to Luke and it's the path he has paved and doesn't get always doesn't get credit for sort of, mowing those trees down so we can all walk a little easier down that path. I want to take this into the world, before I have to let you go, into the world of Jeff Clanagan, the day-to-day. We got to meet your dog. What's your dog's name, by the way?
Yeah, well, there was two of them. It was Bootsy and Cassius.
I already know why they're named that, so that's good. So I love Bootsy and Cassius. That's great. We want to get into a little bit of your day-to-day and what drives you and your creativity and entrepreneurialism. When you're in focus mode, what music do you listen to?
I'm a hip hop head, but unfortunately, to be honest with you, like today's hip hop is like, outside of make Kendrick or J. Cole, Jay put something out, but the new stuff is just, I don't want to go down that road, but so I'm listening more to the kind of the older stuff on my Apple iTunes.
What do you recommend us listen to? Like, if we're just trying to get like some work done for an hour, what should we put on? Any genre, any music, doesn't matter.
Well, it depends what I'm doing. Like if I'm working out, it might be hip hop. If it's at night riding, it might be R&B. So it really depends what mood I'm in. But it'll go from hip hop to R&B, one of those two.
Yeah. I came up in R&B as a musician doing kind of R&B pop, and I love there's like playlists, obviously now that just the apps will generate for you, probably using AI. And those are great. I think those are the problem with those for me with focus, Jeff, is that I will start to sing along. Yeah, and lose track of what I'm typing or what I'm trying to do. So yeah, but that's good. I would, the hip hop for working out is a no brainer. R&B, to me, it has to be R&B, like maybe like a Maxwell type, where it just is it's also soothing, and I can get into that focus space. Otherwise, I go straight to Claire de Lune and or jazz. Like I'll just go to jazz. Sometimes even Coltrane's like a little too busy to focus, but Brubeck, Glenn Gould, those are some good choices for me on focus mode. Okay. As detailed as possible, can you just run down your daily routine? So like, what time do you wake up? What do you like to have for breakfast? What does that workout like? What software do you use, et cetera? Things, just whatever you want to add in terms of your daily.
Usually I wake up around 6, get up, sometimes exercise, sometimes not, depending on what's going on. But the challenge over the last 2 or 3 years because of the pandemic is what I've seen is a very huge increase in email and reliance on email versus person-to-person contact and conversations. So unfortunately, one of my biggest complaints is I'm spending, 5-6 hours a day doing emails, which is crazy to me.
Brutal.
Sitting working on a computer. So I've, a lot of the days it's just answering emails and then doing Zoom calls all day long. In this current environment, I mean, I think that'll change a little bit, but there's a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of emails just dealing with, everything that's going on. My outlet away from the business though on a daily is that I'm actually the high school track and field coach at Calabasas. So that's kind of my step away from the business, is to get my head clear that has nothing to do with business.
What was your 40 and your 100 time at your peak?
4.4 in high school. I did
4.4?
Yeah. I did not run the 100.
You got to be kidding me.
No, I was a 400 runner, 49.8 in the 400. I was a triple jumper too, 48 in the triple jump.
Okay, you were a serious athlete.
Yeah. No, that was that was like the path was athletic. It was sports.
Yeah, you can roll. 4.4 is rolling, folks. If you don't know, I was probably a 4.7, 4.6 person at my peak, at my very fastest. So yeah, you were rolling. I respect that. Bullet round questions here for filmmakers, entertainers, people that are creatives. What books do you recommend?
What would I recommend?
Books. Do you have any books you could recommend?
I have to look at my thing.
I see there are lots of books for those just on the podcast and the audio only.
Yeah, no, I got a bunch of books. Well, I mean, first I'd always say is the business of film. Learn the business that you're getting into. Even if you're creative, learn the business, because you learn the business, it'll help you. It'll help guide you on your journey and into the business. But there's the book, The Business of Film. It's just an overview of how the film business works, but also understand how deals work, how things get set up. A lot of people don't understand is that films get greenlit or picked up you're pitching to a creative, but ultimately it's the numbers guys behind the scene that you never see who are driving and dictate what actually gets picked up or released. Because everything's like, put onto a P&L, which is a profit and loss statement, in terms of driving what that investment is going to be from a studio on whether they're going to pick up a film or not.
That's a very good point. What are the biggest mistakes you see newcomers making, filmmakers make in general? And what advice would you give to avoid those mistakes?
For filmmakers?
Yep.
Never pitch a film and say, hey, I got an incredible soundtrack. Doesn't mean anything. You're going to come in and lead, well, I got the soundtrack. That has nothing to do with the film. That's number one. Number two, don't be a clone of, hey, I got the next Tyler Perry. We already have one Tyler Perry. We don't need another Tyler Perry. I mean, you'd be surprised some of the people come in and pitch stuff based on something that's successful. Now, you can reference comps, but don't say I have the next Tyler Perry. I've got the soundtrack is going to be really, the soundtrack has nothing to do with the film. Also, people use, what's called comps, and like, hey, this film is going to make $200 million. No, it's not. And you have no data that would say it would. You be sure that's how it's the film based on a creative. Like, you don't have enough information to say the film's going to do $200 million and it shouldn't be the next this or next that. But that's where a lot of people make mistakes at in pitches.
That's a really great point. And the other thing about the soundtrack is, don't tell me about the soundtrack, especially if there are songs you don't have rights to.
Exactly.
Like, that's a whole other boat of shit you have to swim through if you're trying to produce a movie. Mm-hmm. Is there you're a promoter and a marketing major. I'm a marketing and journalism major. We're kindred spirits in that way. Is there anything new in the P&A space that you're excited or that you found innovative? And P&A or marketing, if you want to put it in common parlance.
Well, I think what happens is, where we're at right now in the industry is that you have brands who are now potentially becoming P&A partners, and it's, in some cases even funding content, because what's happening is that the brands have realized that the traditional way of just putting up commercials and things like that is not working. So there's a whole nother pool of potential financing that's associated with brands. I mean, there are brands that are producing TV and things like that, and potential P&A partners. So I think that's going to be the next iteration of where you kind of see the investment come into the content and their P&A space.
That's a bit still cyclical, isn't it? Like, I think that's how TV started, was that your program would be, whatever you were watching that night would be sponsored by Acme Insurance Company.
Exactly. Procter & Gamble is the one that created that model with soap operas. I mean, soap operas are nothing but a 30-minute commercial for Procter & Gamble, but it's going, that's actually where it's going back to, though.
That's exactly right. Wow. We've always said that innovation is nothing more than bundling and then unbundling and doing it over and over again. So I think, what goes around comes around, right? Yep. We talked about social media, the negative side of it and the positive side of it. I think the business in general, you said it was a cutthroat business. Obviously, that can have some different effects on people's mental health and the way you feel and your self-worth. And I'm just curious if you've ever been in a dark place in this business before, Jeff. And if so, how did you get yourself out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I've had ups and downs in the business, especially when I was a promoter, concept, because it's promoting is such high risk. It's such a high risk business. So there's a couple of times I almost had to step out of the business for a second when I was a promoter. So it was because it's just so a high risk. Like, you can make a lot of money, you can lose a lot of money. It's kind of like being at the blackjack table in Vegas. Like, you can hit, and then you can lose. Like, one of the biggest probably loss I had is coming out of. I bought into the Run DMC tour. I probably like about 15 dates. This is way back in the day, but this is when they had their Tougher Than Leather tour coming out, right? Mm-hmm. And what happened was, obviously it was very expensive venturing into dates. The album flopped. Because it considerably affected all the ticket sales. So, because they pre-sold the tour, based on it's Run DMC, so everybody's just bought in. So that was a tough period because the album flopped, which impacted ticket sales.
But how did you get yourself out of that jam?
Say it again.
How did you get yourself out of that sort of dark space?
It took years to get out of that space because you lost so much money.
Yeah. So I imagine you were, today they would talk about it differently. I think that whole sort of, Charlemagne the God sort of, shook one kind of presence now where in the Black community, it's okay to go get a therapist. It's okay to admit that you have anxiety. It's okay to say that you're feeling a little depression. But back then, I don't think that was the case. So I'm just curious how you were able to work yourself through that.
I mean, it's survival. Like, it's kind of like that point. It's kind of, you don't have a choice. Like, I mean, you just have to pull yourself out of the space. I don't think I went to anybody or talked to anybody, but it's just you kind of deal with it. Especially during that time period, you just deal with it. You have to be strong. You got to be really strong-minded and focused and motivated to kind of pull out of those kind of situations.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from that is when you're in those spots where you've had a major failure, if you believed in your original foundational thesis about yourself and about what you're doing, then just double down on it and refocus on work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always been the belief I can always pull myself out of a situation. So it wasn't like I thought I couldn't. So it's just, you got to believe in yourself and believe in your plan and your model and what you're doing.
Yeah, spot on. I'm fascinated by this concept that you're doing with Hartbeat, this Hartbeat experience. Mm-hmm. These are sort of not filmed, not recorded, not streamed, and not replayed on social media. And so the way you're marketing it so far on social media is really interesting too. So what's been the public response to these Hartbeat experience events where you have to be there to experience it, and otherwise you just kind of quote unquote missed out?
It's interesting, the traditional Hollywood's like, hey, you should be filming. I'm like, well, yeah, but we're building an a live business, right? I mean, one of the things out of the pandemic, the live business is something that's really rebounded. People want to interact with each other, want to be, go to destinations where the people are. So when you look at the concert business, like if you look at this summer, you got Beyonce on tour, everybody's on tour, Drake's on tour, everybody's going, and the tickets are selling. So consumers are obviously a demand for it. So what I didn't want to do with our experience is water down. When I want to say watered down experience is I wanted to set it up in a way, and it is like you said, it's marketing. Like, look, you got to be here. And if you're not here, guess what? You just missed Dave Chappelle walking on stage at Madison Square Garden. We didn't announce that in South Africa. You just missed Trevor Noah popping up on stage. So the whole catch is like, hey, this is the announced talent, but guess what? Guaranteed there's going to be some surprise guests. So it might be only happen one time. Like you're not going to see Kevin, Dave, and Chris on the stage again, at least not right now, as they figured something out. But it's a one in a lifetime experience. So that's what we're trying to market. And that's when people are responding very favorably, because when they see they miss out on stuff, and it's not, nope, you're not going to see a stream on Netflix. You got to be there.
Yeah, there's two brilliant things about that. One, we're in an age of inundation with content.
Mm-hmm.
So to pull content away is genius, because everybody's feeding. And you're saying, well, I don't need to feed you. I'll pull this away and you need to come do this. Because the second part of that's brilliant to me is that what is life but just a set of experiences that you can tell stories about? Because, in the words of Joseph Campbell, we are the storytelling animal.
Exactly.
And you can't tell a story if everybody experienced it, because it isn't for you anymore.
Exactly.
It isn't your story anymore. And there's something really powerful about that. I was in a board meeting. I'm on a few boards, and I was on a board meeting of a film festival, and they were talking about, would people really pay $2,500 a plate to be at this dinner with Taylor Swift? Mm-hmm. And I was like, how many do we need to sell? And they're like, probably 50. That's all. I said, yeah, you'll get 50 people to pay $2,500 a plate to eat dinner with Taylor Swift. 50, that's it? Yeah, of course they will. Because they'll be one of 50 people that can tell the story that they got to have dinner with Taylor Swift.
That's true. That's true.
So being in Nashville, obviously that's a big deal, but it's, that's, I think people think to themselves they think about the money and they don't think about the experience, but the experience is all we really have. Jeff, you've been incredible. I knew you would be. I want to keep my promise to you and get you out of here somewhat on time. Do you have any parting words, pieces of advice for our audience?
Probably nothing that I haven't covered. Just, you got to believe in yourself, but you got to, whatever path you choose to pursue, is you got to do the research. You got to educate yourself on what business you're going to be in. If you're going to be a filmmaker, then learn about the film business. You can't just be a filmmaker without understanding the business. If you're going to be in the music, understand the business, but also understand, if you're creating content, that distribution is key. There's a saying that says content is king, which probably a lot of people have heard. I would say if content is king, distribution is emperor. So they got to go hand in hand. So if you got content, you got to think about how you're going to get that content to the public. Now that could be direct through social media, or it could be through a company, but you got to figure out how to find the end user and the demand and create a demand for your content.
It's a great point. Can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media, on the internet, maybe see some of your work? And if you want to, you can give them a way to contact you. It's up to you.
Well, you can go to Hartbeat.com. There's a profile page there that has a contact there. Go to codefilms.com. I have a personal Facebook page, but I'm not really on it that much. I'm probably something more on LinkedIn than anything personally. And then I have on Facebook, I have a bunch of CodeBlack brand pages, but those, like I said, those are not personal pages, but probably, LinkedIn or Hartbeat.com.
All right. Well, we'll end on this. What is the funniest thing Kevin Hart has ever said to you personally?
But he's he tells jokes all the time. So, but actually, Kevin doesn't. People think about comedians is that, like, off the stage, he's not necessarily. I mean, he says stuff, but he's not necessarily just joking all the time. You know what I mean? So it's not like he just talks how he talks. But that's what I think that's a whole nother subject, though. Comedians have a whole nother side to them. A whole nother side that's off the stage. So they're not just like off the stage. They're not just telling jokes all the time. They may be talking, like playing the dozens per se, but it's not, that's playing the dozens, but that's a cultural thing. You know what I mean? But it's not necessarily just joking around all the time. Yeah,
it's a good point because when I watch Kevin Hart across a lot of different contexts and platforms, you get to see a piece of his humanity mixed in with his comedy all the time. So, for example, he recently did an interview with Houdinki, the watchmaking company. I know he's really into AP, and he's a brand ambassador for them. But that interview started with him just being Kevin, the person, and sort of ended with really funny stories that were pulled out that made that interview incredible, in my opinion.
Yeah, the thing about it. So the question you asked, what's the funniest thing he said? It's not something he said to me, but he's told some funny stories. And I would say, just I'll do it like real quick.
Please.
Probably the funniest story he's ever said that he told me, I was sitting there when we were doing the story, is that we've been trying to, we've toured Africa a couple of times, right? Mm-hmm. So we've been trying to get him to go to Nigeria. Like, I'm not going to Nigeria. Can't get him to Nigeria because, obviously because there's a lot of things. But he's got this story that Akon told him. I'm going to do this real quick. Please. Because I can't do the story justice, right? He got the story that Akon told him that when Busta Rhymes went to play Nigeria and the promoters had him over there and he did a date. And so then they wanted Busta Rhymes to do more dates. I guess they were just promoting dates. So at one point, Busta Rhymes, now Kevin's got to tell the story. Like this is, I'm not giving it, but so at one point, Busta said, okay, I'm finished. I want to leave. And they said, no, you can't leave. And so then Busta Rhymes, being who he is, New York, he goes off on the promoters. They come up there with machetes like, you're not leaving Nigeria, period. And they lock him in his hotel room. So when Kevin's telling the story, so then Busta had to call Akon. Akon had to come in and do what he does and get him out. But they basically hold him up in a hole. They were not going to let him go.
That's crazy.
So but when Kevin's telling stories, like that's probably the funniest story I ever told.
That's great, man. I appreciate that. And that is hilarious. And it's great to know because I'm a huge Busta Rhymes fan and Kevin Hart fan and Akon fan. So that works for me and hopefully this audience too. Jeff, you're the man. I appreciate you so much. And I hope we can get together and do a round two. And I hope that the next time I'm in LA, we can get together, even if it's just for coffee or whatever you'd like to have. So thanks again, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Be good.
Okay,
peace. You've been listening to the Make It Podcast. For more information about this episode, please visit our website at www.bonsai.film. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative, and the show will pop right up. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at _Bonsai Creative, and on Facebook and LinkedIn by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative. In addition, you can provide feedback to us via email at contact@bonsai.film. You now have the opportunity to support the production of this podcast. If you love Make It and are a true fan of what we are trying to accomplish in the indie film community, please consider supporting our Patreon page. We spend a combined 35 hours a week producing each episode. We do this with a small team of go-getters that are passionate about film and connecting people with similar interests across the globe. And we have lots of goodies in store for our supporters, including bonus content, exclusive swag, and discounts and freebies to private film events. If that sounds like something you can get behind, Donations start at only $5 monthly. And, of course, if you're looking to take a big step toward your film's financial success, go to www.bonsai.film and click on Services to explore our unrivaled approach to film marketing. You have everything to gain. Until next time, be better, be creative, be engaged, and thank you for listening.
At Baker's Pharmacy, care is what's most convenient for you. Care is being here when you need us. We're open evenings and weekends. Care is helping you save more. Most insurance plans and discount cards are accepted at your local Baker's Pharmacy. Care is saving you time by managing your prescriptions online. You can request refills, check order status, and more. Care is convenience that works for everyone. Baker's, a world of care is in store. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details.
Menards has the best in-stock selection of AC2 pressure-treated lumber. All easy to load in our drive-through lumber yard. Choose from our huge inventory of boards, decking, fencing, lumber, and timbers to build your project to last. Plus, you can get free estimates fast with our deck and fence design programs at Menards. Number one in customer satisfaction among home improvement retailers according to J.D. Power. For more information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Save